when we talk about Golden Boy, sometimes we point out the bad that they do, but sometimes we point out the great that they do. Well, we're going to point out some of the bad stuff that they did today. And one was overlooking Josecito Lopez from the Thompson promotion stable with head trainer Henry Ramirez and thinking that this was going to be an easy fight. Now, let me take that back. Let me take the word thinking, because people hang on words sometimes of things that we say here on Leaving the Ring. Not just the listeners, but people in the business. I don't think they thought this was going to be as tough as they thought it was going to be. I think they thought this is going to be a good run for Victor Ortiz. This is going to be a good test for him to keep him busy so that he doesn't get stale for September 15th against Saul Canelo Alvarez. But like I mentioned before, this is a kid that comes to fight. If you've never paid attention to his career, if you never bother to even watch him, or even kind of, when you hear the announcement of these two guys, two warriors, and I use warriors because regardless of what you think of Victor Ortiz or what we have said about him, I think we have to eat a little bit of crow here. The kid fought his ass off. The kid fought his heart. And I think he did really try to leave it in the ring. But going back to what I was saying is that when the announcement of these two warriors at the Staple for last week, you would have went back and said, let me find out just a little bit more about Josecito Lopez. And then you would have said, you know what, this is a very competitive fight. I got to tell you this. There were some scary moments for Lopez thinking he was not going to get out of this, that he might have been testing himself a little bit too much, might have been pushing himself a little too much of trying to stay on top of Ortiz, because you did see that those punches that he was landing, they were flush, they were hard, they did rock Josecito. He had him buckled a few times, but there was no going home tonight in that kid at all. We got a good show, a good lineup for tonight. I believe we do have Josecito Lopez going to be calling in at 5:15, among some other names that we're going to be putting in. But I want to patch in somebody that wasn't scheduled, but I did speak to him a little earlier, which is the manager of Victor Ortiz, to speak to him. Just a 5-minute thing. Yeah, just to find out the update about Victor and where do they go from now, because there has been some reports, but I think he's the man to speak to. I know he's on vacation, so it's just going to be short and brief, and it's Rolando Arellano, who is the manager of Victor Ortiz. So let's see if we can get a hold of him. He's out and about. He just got out of the ocean, hanging out with some beautiful ladies, he said, on his vacation time. So he said, let's chop it up for a quick minute. And he said, when you do talk to him, this guy... Hey, Rolando, how you doing, brother? This is Dave Duenas and Gabriel Montoya from Leaving the Ring Radio.
What's up, gentlemen? How are you?
Doing good, brother. Doing good, man.
How are you?
Just really quick, congratulations. I know you guys didn't get the victory, but you definitely, your fighter showed the tremendous heart and the will that he has. I mean, he was really fighting to keep his spot. Now, can you give us the extent of the injuries, how Victor is doing, and what are we looking at for recovery for him?
Yeah, well, the extent of the injuries were a little bit more serious than most people. Most people thought. Initially, they said he had a broken jaw, but he had a broken jaw in two spaces, and in two different areas, right? And I believe in the 5th round, the jaw broke number 1 first time, and then in the 9th round, it broke again. But in the 9th round, it launched something into the back of his neck where it actually cut a vein in there, and he started bleeding internally. So the doctor in the locker room basically said, look, guys, I'm not asking you to go to the hospital. I'm telling you to go to the hospital because he's bleeding out. And typically when you bleed out is when you have arterial bleeding.
Right.
So they took him to the hospital, and hospital 1 stabilized him, right? And, thank God we got there enough time because we didn't know the real true extent of this. And then they basically said, listen, we don't deal with these types of severe injuries. You need to go to a special at Cedars-Sinai. So he went to hospital number 2. They set up surgery for him, and he was there under surgery for 2 hours. He got the titanium plate in his jaw with 3 screws in it.
Oh wow! So let me ask you: after something like this happens, I mean, broken in 2 different spots, how much in danger is his boxing career after that? I mean, have the doctors told him, you're going to have to take maybe a full year, 2 years off before you can even test it
well,
and see whether or not?
That was my primary concern, right? His well-being, his safety, and his welfare, right, was my primary concern. But the doctor comes out and he says, look, man, the bone's going to be stronger than ever because, when it heals, and basically when you put a plate in there, ain't nothing breaking that plate. This is what we make airplanes out of. And I go, okay, that's good. So that means, is he going to fight again? Right? He goes, absolutely, he can fight again. And then I told him, what's your prognosis? And he goes, yeah, 4 to 6. 4 to 6 months. He goes, we will monitor it as it goes along. And you know what? As you bring him in a couple of weeks, and we'll take his wires out, and then we'll look at it, and you know what? We'll bring him in for follow up, and we will gauge it as it goes along because it could be anywhere from 4 to 6 months.
That's good to hear. I mean, when hearing about those injuries, that was the first thing that popped in my head. I'm like, I know a lot of people are calling for a rematch, but I'm like, I'd love to see a rematch, but first I'd like to find out whether or not he's going to be able to get back.
We got to make sure that he's able to, to fight another day and stuff like that. You know what I mean? That was my concern. You know what? Are you going to be okay? Because if the doctor came in and basically said, hey, you know what? He can't fight. And Victor wanted to fight, he wasn't fighting under my flag, right? Because I don't do that to fighters. I don't cash in on them. Bullshit. They hire me for a reason. That's to protect them, right? Because, and that's what I plan on doing. And then when the doctor came in front of all of us and said, look, this jaw's going to be stronger than ever, immediately Victor wrote on a piece of paper, exercise my rematch clause.
Absolutely.
How much of this, you got to monitor the physical, but you kind of just answered my question. How much, you've been around, a guy that was also very exciting like Ortiz, but kind of willing to take a lot of punches in Fernando Vargas. How much of the mental aspect are you looking at right now with him?
Absolutely. It's human nature, brother. It's not boxing nature. It's not sports nature. It's human nature that when you break a hand, a limb, and the doctors say, hey, it's great, you're ready to go, you have a sense of reluctance to use whatever limb or whatever arm, whatever leg is, that you broke, right? Because, you're the one with the scar, with the injury, and you'll feel different things, And basically, we clearly understand that, so we have to monitor him. You know what? When he told me to exercise the rematch clause, this kid's saying, like, don't worry about me, man. You know what? Just make sure that you get me back in the ring. Now, with that said, sometimes we have to protect fighters from themselves.
Right.
Because they're gladiators and they're warriors. Case in point, broken jaw in the 5th, locked open in the 9th, right? Someone needs to step in for this kid. And, so we will monitor him in sparring, and the way he looks, and when we'll know the first time he gets hit, because we'll know that the jaw is fine. For crying out loud, he'll have a titanium plate in there, right? The question is, does he believe it's fine? And right. I think we're going to be okay. So the kid said, he wasn't worried about, can I get back in the ring? Or, is it going to break again? Am I going to get disfigured? He said, get me a damn rematch. It's interesting stuff, and you get a lot of the critics, right? And I appreciate their opinions, right? I appreciate it, but I don't have to validate their opinions, right? There's two types of opinions. Opinions that are based on fact, right, and actual inferences, and then you reach a conclusion. But all these fucking people out there talking shit about Victor, excuse my language, talking bad about Victor, right, that they didn't know that in fact he had a broken jaw. No, in fact he had two broken jaws, and that he had to hold his jaw closed with his glove for the 5th, 6th, 7th round until a punch locked it open, like the bone locked.
He couldn't. You could see it. His mouth was like hanging open. Or it was like it snapped open. He hit that button. I mean, I didn't feel that he needed to go any further. Once that injury, you could tell that something was wrong when he called over Jack Reed.
Yeah, his mouth was locked open. First it was he said, hey, something happened in the 5th where, I noticed that, and he couldn't feel it because of the adrenaline, of course, right? You know what? My jaw kept closing. You know. It kind of opened up, right? My jaw kept opening up, and then he goes, "Oh fuck, it's broken," because I can't. My brain wants to close it, but it's not reacting, right? And then he said, you know, he would have to hold his glove up, and then when he throws the punches, he would have to put his head towards his chest to keep it shut.
That is, man. I mean, you know, I don't know. None of us are ever going to experience something like that. And to say this kid does not have heart is just full.
No, because you're not in the war zone, right? You're not getting the bullets. And
exactly.
Even Antonio Tarver said, "Nah, bullshit. He didn't break his jaw. You know what? Because I broke my jaw, and when you break a jaw, you can't go on another minute."
I think that it depends on each individual. You know what I mean? I've broken several of my toes, and at work, and I continue to keep working where other guys would just end up going home. I think it just depends on the individual. But Rolando, I'm going to let you go, brother, because I know you're out there and having a good time, and I just appreciate you coming on and speaking to us.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
And, you know what, call me anytime. And if I answer, great. If I don't, you know, we'll get together.
Absolutely. Take care.
Awesome. Take care, man.
There you go. Rolando Arellano, the manager of Victor Ortiz, telling us the extent of injury that has happened with Victor Ortiz. Ooh. And that's some brutal stuff there, you know, and I put it up.
Yeah, I tweeted it all out, and you have to say that last detail. You know, like, this is gruesome. The guy held his jaw shut with his glove, and then, like, he got popped open and locked in that position. That sucks. I mean, it does. I mean, if you're going to be able to, like Rolando said, if you can mentally be able to come back from that, if you're going to be able to trust that he's going to get rocked in the jaw and nothing's going to go bad, that you're going to be able to risk mentally and physically the way he used to with abandon. I don't know, like Fernando Vargas seemed to always risk the same amount no matter how much he fought, and how many bad things happened to him in the ring. Maybe Ortiz is cut from that cloth. We'll see.
At the same time, though, you know, Fernando Vargas, you know, sold his career short for being that type of a warrior. You know, I mean, and here's the ironic thing is that so many folks was like, Lopez is not going to be able to put a dent. He's not going to be able to hold him off. He's not going to be able to back Ortiz. And that feather-fisted kid was able to break Victor Ortiz's jaw. Not in one place, but in two.
Well, you know, I think it was like, it was interesting. It's like the fights kind of mirrored each other. Matisse was the young, strong bull. He boxes, I think, much more intelligently than Ortiz.